Stranded in the desert, a human doctor was dying, until an alien princess appeared. The desert was not just hot. It was merciless. It erased footprints, swallowed sound, and punished weakness without hesitation. Dr. Cale Arden had treated war victims on Mars, cured plagues in orbital colonies, and once restarted a child's heart with nothing but a broken medkit and stubborn will. But none of that mattered now. Because in this moment, under twin burning suns, Cale Arden was losing to sand. His shuttle had gone down during a magnetic storm over the Tarsi's expanse. The crash had been violent, but he survived. The desert, however, was not interested in survival stories. His water ran out hours ago. His medical scanner was dead. The emergency beacon never activated. And the heat was winning. He staggered forward, boots sinking into scorching dunes. His throat felt like cracked glass. His vision blurred. The twin suns above him glared like cosmic judges. Ironically, he knew exactly what was happening to his body. Core temperature rising. Organs under stress. Cognitive decline beginning. He would have made an excellent medical lecture right now. Stay awake, he muttered to himself. Just keep moving. But the desert did not care about human determination. It only cared about entropy. Cale collapsed to his knees. Sand burned through the fabric of his suit. His hands trembled as he tried to push himself up again. He had saved hundreds of lives across 3 systems. He had always believed that knowledge was humanity's greatest weapon. But knowledge could not create water from nothing. Darkness crept into his vision. And then, a shadow moved across the sand. Not a cloud. There were no clouds. A figure walked toward him through the heat distortion. Tall, graceful, untouched by the desert's rage. Cale tried to focus, but his brain struggled to process what his eyes were seeing. The figure knelt beside him. Cool fingers touched his face. And for the first time in hours, he felt cold. A soft voice spoke in a language he did not know, yet somehow understood. Human, you are not permitted to die today. Something touched his lips. Water. Not recycled station water. Not processed colony fluid. Pure. Clean. Cold. It flooded through him like life itself. He tried to speak, but the world faded before he could form words. Darkness swallowed him. But this time, it felt protective. When Cale awoke, he expected pain. Instead, he felt balance. Cool air flowed gently around him. The room was dim but glowing, the walls smooth and slightly luminous, like polished stone mixed with living crystal. He pushed himself up slowly. You recover faster than predicted. The voice was calm, clear, observing. Cale turned his head. She stood several steps away. Humanoid, but not human. Her skin shimmered faintly under the room's light. Her eyes were deep silver, almost reflective. Her ears tapered slightly upward, elegant but unmistakably alien. Her clothing seemed woven from light itself. He blinked once. Twice. Well, he said slowly, either I'm hallucinating, or First Contact needs better paperwork. Her expression shifted slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. You are not hallucinating. I am Princess Serelith of the Avari Dominion. Cale stared at her. That's not a name I've seen on the Kepler colony registry. The Avari are not registered. That got his full attention. He swung his legs over the edge of what appeared to be a hovering platform. All right, he said calmly, Dr. Brain taking over. Let's assume you're real. Let's assume I'm not dead. That means you brought me here. Yes. Why? She studied him carefully. 3 years ago, on the Titan research array, you treated an unidentified diplomatic envoy suffering from neural collapse. Cale froze. That incident had been classified at the highest level. I improvised, he said carefully. You ignored your own command structure. You defied quarantine orders. You risked planetary contamination. I saved them. Yes. Her eyes held his. The envoy was Avari. One of them was my brother. The room felt smaller. You've been watching me, Kale realized. Yes. That's mildly concerning. We observe species before contact. Most civilizations collapse under their own fear. Humans do not. Kale almost laughed. You clearly haven't met our politics. Serelith stepped closer. Your species fights itself constantly. Yet when faced with extinction, you unite with terrifying efficiency. You innovate under pressure. You survive impossible environments. Even now, you crossed 12 kilometers of lethal desert without adequate resources. He shrugged slightly. Humans are stubborn. Yes, she said softly. That is why I intervened. A faint hum vibrated through the structure. Serelith's posture stiffened. You were not the only crash in the desert today. Kale's instincts sharpened immediately. What does that mean? Her silver eyes darkened. A rival faction detected your shuttle's descent. They believe humans are weak. They wish to confirm it. Kale stood fully now. Still weak. But steady. And you disagree. She looked directly at him. I believe humans are underestimated. Outside the shelter, something massive roared across the sands. The desert was no longer empty. Kale flexed his hands slowly. Well, he said quietly, good thing I'm very good at surviving impossible situations. Serelith studied him carefully. You are unarmed. Kale gave a tired but confident smile. I'm human. And sometimes, that was enough. The desert was silent again. But it was the wrong kind of silence. Kale had learned long ago that real danger rarely announced itself loudly. It moved quietly. It observed. It calculated. And right now, something out there was calculating. Serelith extended her hand, and the wall of the shelter shimmered. The stone-like surface became transparent, revealing the outside dunes. Heat waves danced across the sand. Then Kale saw them. 3 tall figures moving across the desert in perfect formation. They were not Avari. Their bodies were broader, armored in dark exoskeletal plating that reflected the twin suns. Long mechanical limbs extended from their backs, scanning the terrain. Their heads were angular, with narrow glowing visors where eyes should be. They tracked the energy signature of your shuttle, Serelith said quietly. The Carthan Dominion. Expansionists. They believe Earth will eventually threaten their territory. Kale folded his arms slowly. So they came to check if we're worth worrying about. Yes. And their method of research is hunting me. Yes. Kale nodded once. Rude. Outside, one of the Carthan lifted its arm. A pulse of red light swept across the sand like a scanning wave. Serelith's jaw tightened. They will detect this shelter soon. Can we fight them? Kale asked. She hesitated. In direct combat, no. They are genetically engineered for warfare. Their armor can withstand plasma fire. Kale looked back at the 3 massive figures. Good thing humans don't do direct very often. Serelith glanced at him. You are still dehydrated. Your strength is limited. True, Kale said calmly. But I'm not planning to arm wrestle them. Another red scan pulsed outward. This one closer. The shelter's surface flickered. They are triangulating, Serelith said. Kale's mind shifted into problem-solving mode, the same mode that had saved lives in operating rooms when machines failed and time ran out. What do they breathe? He asked. Serelith blinked. What? The Carthan. Atmospheric composition. She paused, confused but answering. They require high nitrogen density. Lower oxygen than humans. Why? Kale's eyes sharpened. And their cooling system? In armor. It regulates internal temperature through evaporative dispersion vents. Kale smiled slightly. So they're basically walking pressure cookers. Serelith stared at him. I do not understand the reference. You don't need to. Outside, one of the Carthans stopped moving. Its visor turned directly toward the shelter. The wall flickered violently. "They found us," Serelith whispered. The first blast hit the rock formation. The entire chamber shook. Dust rained down from above. Kale steadied himself. "All right," he said calmly. "Here's what we're going to do." Another blast struck. The outer camouflage shattered. The desert light poured inside. The three Carthan now stood clearly visible. Massive. Armed. Unafraid. Serelith summoned a blade of glowing energy into her hand. Kale gently pushed her arm down. "No." She looked at him sharply. "You cannot defeat them." "I don't need to defeat them," he replied. "I need to make them defeat themselves." One of the Carthan stepped forward and spoke in a metallic voice that vibrated through the sand. "Human. Exit the structure. You will be studied." Kale stepped outside. Serelith grabbed his arm. "This is illogical." He looked at her. "Trust me." The heat hit him like a hammer again, but this time he was prepared. The medical monitor on his wrist glowed faintly. He walked forward slowly, raising his hands. The Carthan leader tilted its head. "You show surrender." Kale nodded. "Absolutely. I am weak. Dehydrated. Completely non-threatening." The Carthan scanned him. Biology confirmed. Human male. No weapons detected. Kale took another step closer. "You want to study humanity," he said. "Let me teach you something." The Carthan's visor narrowed. "Explain." Kale smiled faintly. "Humans evolved on a death world." The alien paused. "Clarify." "Our planet tries to kill us every day. Viruses. Heat. Cold. Predators. We didn't survive by being stronger." He gestured to the desert around them. "We survived by adapting faster." The Carthan leader moved closer, towering over him. "You are stalling." "Yes," Kale admitted calmly. "But not for the reason you think." Behind them, the shelter began releasing vapor, faint, almost invisible in the heat. Serelith watched, confused. Then she understood. Kale had altered the medical system inside the shelter minutes earlier while she was monitoring the scans. He had redirected its hydration reserves into the air. The vapor mixed with the desert's extreme heat. The air around the Carthan shimmered. Their armor vents activated automatically to regulate temperature, drawing in the superheated, moisture-heavy air. Inside their sealed suits, Kale stepped back slowly. "Your armor cools by dispersing heat through microventing," he said calmly. "But moisture at this temperature creates rapid internal pressure fluctuations." The Carthan leader's movements slowed. Warning lights flickered across its chest plating. "You manipulated atmospheric variables," it said slowly. "Yes." Steam began forming along the seams of their armor. One of the Carthan staggered. Kale's voice remained steady. "Humans don't need to be stronger than you. We just need to understand systems better." The second Carthan dropped to one knee. Internal pressure alarms echoed faintly. The leader tried to raise its weapon. Kale shook his head. "Your species engineered yourselves for controlled battlefields. But this desert? It doesn't care about your design." With a sharp metallic crack, one armor joint ruptured. Superheated vapor burst outward. The remaining Carthan stepped back, retreating. Within seconds, all three figures activated emergency propulsion and launched into the sky, escaping the unstable environment. Silence returned to the desert. Kale exhaled slowly. Serelith stepped beside him. "You weaponized humidity," she said quietly. He shrugged. "I'm a doctor. I understand how bodies fail under stress." She looked at him differently now. Not as a rescued being, but as something else. "You faced 3 war-engineered hunters," she said. "Unarmed." Kale looked out across the dunes. "Humans don't win because we're the strongest," he said softly. "We win because we pay attention." Above them, in orbit, hidden Carthan observation ships recorded everything. And for the first time in their history, they updated their threat assessment of humanity, from minor species to strategic concern. Serelith looked toward the sky. This will not be the end. Kale gave a small smile. Good. He turned back toward the shelter. Because humans are just getting started. The desert was no longer just sand. It was evidence. Above the planet, hidden ships from the Carthan Dominion replayed the encounter again and again. 3 engineered hunters. 1 unarmed human. No advanced weapons. No military support. And yet the outcome was clear. The human had not fought harder. He had thought faster. Inside the Avari shelter, Kale stood quietly, watching the twin suns sink lower in the sky. His body was still recovering, but his mind was fully awake now. Serelith stood beside him. You changed something today, she said. I just survived, Kale replied. No, she said softly. You demonstrated something. A faint light pulsed across the walls of the shelter. An incoming transmission. Serelith stiffened. It is the Avari High Council. Kale exhaled slowly. Am I in trouble? Yes, she answered honestly. But so am I. The chamber shifted. A circular projection formed in the air, revealing towering holographic figures. Tall, elegant beings with luminous eyes and flowing crystalline attire. Their presence felt ancient. Powerful. Princess Serelith, one of them said, voice echoing with layered tones. You have violated observation protocol. Yes, she answered without hesitation. You intervened in the survival of a pre-contact species. Yes. Silence filled the chamber. Then their gaze shifted toward Kale. This is the human. Kale gave a small nod. Dr. Kale Arden. Specialist in xenobiology. Occasional rule breaker. One of the council members tilted their head slightly. You show no fear. Kale considered that. Oh, I'm terrified, he said honestly. But fear doesn't mean paralysis. It just means the situation matters. A faint ripple passed through the council chamber, perhaps surprise. The Carthan have updated their assessment of humanity, another council member said. They now classify Earth as a potential strategic rival. Kale folded his arms. Translation. They are considering preemptive action. The room grew colder. Serelith stepped forward. This is precisely why contact is necessary, she said. Humans must not face the Dominion alone. You assume they are worthy of alliance, a councillor replied. Serelith looked toward Kale. He survived impossible odds. He saved Avari lives without knowing who we were. He outmaneuvered engineered soldiers with environmental manipulation. She faced the council fully. If this is humanity at its weakest, dehydrated, unarmed, stranded, imagine humanity united. The council fell silent again. Kale stepped forward. May I speak? The council studied him carefully. You may. Kale took a slow breath. You're afraid of us, he said calmly. And you should be. Serelith glanced at him sharply. He continued. Humans are messy, emotional, divided. We fight each other over territory, politics, religion, resources. The council listened. But when something threatens our survival, we change, Kale said. History proves it. He walked slowly within the projection circle. When Earth faced extinction-level asteroids, we didn't panic. We built planetary defense systems. When plagues wiped out millions, we created vaccines in record time. When environments became unlivable, we terraformed entire worlds. He looked directly at the towering holograms. We are not dangerous because we seek war. He paused. We are dangerous because we refuse to give up. The chamber was completely silent now. You observe us as if we are a potential threat, Kale said. But you haven't considered something. And what is that? A councillor asked. We could be your greatest ally. That statement hung in the air like gravity. Above the planet, Carthan ships shifted positions. Weapons powered quietly. They were waiting for the Avari decision. Inside the chamber, one council member finally spoke. The Carthan respect only strength. Kale nodded. Then show them strength. How? Another asked. Kale smiled faintly. Announce formal alliance negotiations with Earth. Serelitha's eyes widened slightly. That would provoke the Dominion. Exactly, Kale said. Bullies test weakness. They hesitate against unity. The council exchanged silent signals between themselves, luminous pulses only they understood. The risk is immense, one said. So is extinction, Kale replied. Another transmission suddenly cut into the chamber. Not Avari. Carthan. A harsh metallic voice echoed through the shelter. Avari Council. You harbor the human. Surrender him for examination. Kale looked at Serelith. Well, he whispered, that escalated quickly. The council holograms remained steady. This human, the Carthan voice continued, demonstrates adaptive threat capacity. We require biological analysis. Serelith stepped forward. He is under Avari protection. Then you choose confrontation. The air seemed to tighten. Kale leaned slightly toward Serelith. Do they bluff? No. Kale nodded slowly. Good. The council leader spoke clearly. The Avari Dominion formally declares diplomatic initiation with the United Earth Coalition. The chamber vibrated. Serelitha's breath caught. The Carthan transmission paused. That is an act of alignment, the metallic voice warned. Yes, the council leader replied calmly. It is. Silence. Then, the Carthan ships powered down their forward weapons. Not retreating, but reconsidering. Humanity is now under Avari observation and provisional alliance, the council leader continued. Any hostile action against them will be interpreted as aggression toward the Dominion. A long pause. Then the Carthan signal cut off. Gone. The desert outside was quiet once more. Serelith slowly turned toward Kale. You gambled planetary diplomacy. Kale exhaled. Humans do that sometimes. The council projection softened. Dr. Kale Arden, the leader said, you have forced the galaxy to reconsider your species. Kale rubbed the back of his neck. Sorry about that. A faint shimmer, perhaps alien amusement. Humanity will now be contacted formally. Carefully. Gradually. Serelith looked relieved. You may have prevented a war, she said. Kale shook his head slightly. No, he replied softly. We prevented fear from making the first move. Outside, the twin suns dipped below the horizon. For the first time, humanity was not alone in the stars. Not hunted. Not ignored. But respected. And somewhere deep in Carthan's strategic chambers, one conclusion echoed. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the most advanced. But they were the most unpredictable. And in a universe ruled by calculation. That made them powerful. Kale stood beside Serelith at the entrance of the shelter, looking out at the cooling desert. You know, he said, I was supposed to start a quiet medical job on this colony. Serelitha's silver eyes glowed faintly. Your life will not be quiet. He smiled. Good. Above them, distant stars shimmered. The galaxy had taken its first real step toward humanity. And humanity, as always, was ready to surprise it.